before placing the liner over the floating raft bed, what we want to do is cut out a hole that's going to be positioned where our drain is going to be for the floating raft. So in this case, we pick the corner out and we know exactly where we want to place our drain to connect back into the sump tank. So what we did was take a 2.5-inch hole saw, drilled it in there, and what that is going to be used for is a 1.5-inch uniseal. So you have an 1.5-inch uniseal or 1.5-inch diameter PVC pipe that's going to be used as the drain pipe. But what we need to use is a 2.5-inch hole saw in order to make a hole the right size to fit that uniseal in there. So this is what we do first before we place the liner over there. Could we cut it through both the styrofoam and the plywood, and it will go underneath. And that's where we'll place our drainage at. So once we completed the hole for our drainage, then we can go ahead and unravel the liner that's going to be placed inside of the bed. And for those that don't know, most of you do know, but those that don't know, the liner is what's going to hold the water in and prevent it from leaking out. So we have to install the liner in there. We'll place it nice and neat as possible inside of the framework that we've built. And then what you want to do is kind of smooth out all of the wrinkles that are in there. Get it as wrinkle-free as possible before you move on. So what you're going to do is once you have it spread out, you're going to need to secure the corners. And the way we do this, listen up, the way we do this is you're going to have to take one corner, you're going to have to create a crease in the corner, and which is going to cause a flap or an extra portion of the liner to be on one side. Once you cause that crease, you'll see the extra portion that's just there hanging out. Then you're going to have to flap it over. So you create a crease and you flap. Crease, flap. Those right there. This is very simple. Crease, flap, and then make sure everything is smoothed out, and then bend it over and tuck it over the rail. And then from there, we're gonna secure it in place. Once you have it nice and smooth, as many wrinkles as possible out of that corner, then you're gonna secure it with a Tek screw that has a washer on it. Just one on each side of it. Tek screw, washer, leave it alone. Now go and do the rest of the other corners, and then make sure all of them look the same. They're all as smooth as you can get them, and they all are secured with a Tek screw and with a washer on all sides. From there, we need to go back to where we cut that hole for our drain. You remember that, where we cut the hole for the drain. We need to go back to that area, that spot, and we need to cut a hole in the liner. Don't get scared now. Do not get scared. We have to cut a hole in the liner. Now, what I did was I used a knife to cut the hole. I found out where it was at underneath, on top of the liner, and then I cut a hole inside of the hole. So we have the hole that's 2.5 inches. We need to cut a hole within that. We don't want to cut a hole that is exactly 2.5 inches. It has to be enough that liner that's left over, so when we put our uniseal on top of it, it pinches it and it creates a tight a seal. So you want to cut a smaller hole in there, just big enough to where you can slap your uniseal in there and have it squeeze tightly on the uniseal and create a nice seal. So that's what we do. Once you have it cut out, stick your uniseal in there, and then that's where it's going to be your bottom drain. Once that is complete, now we can add water into the system. Filling up the raft unit with water, what that's going to do is seat the liner in place. It's going to make sure all the corners are tight and snug before we permanently attach the liner to the system. Once the water is filled up in the raft unit, then we're going to take off those 2 Tek screws with the washers that we placed on each one of the corners. We're going to remove those now. We don't need those. From there, we're going to take a pre-drilled strap that is going to run across the top of the liner, top of the liner and the top of the frame that we have on all 4 sides. With that, we're going to go ahead and make sure we pull it nice and tight, and then we're going to put screws in each one of them, Tek screws in each one of the pre-drilled holes on that strap. Once you finish that, then the framework of the floating raft is now complete. It is finished. It is finally finished. From here, what you have to do is just using a utility knife or some type of instrument that can cut. You want to go around and go ahead and trim up all the sides. Make sure you make your raft bed nice and neat. Nice and neat.